What's up, guys? It's me, Andre, coming at you with a little bit of a different intro today because I'm here to announce that this episode includes our first ever guest, Caroline Makauskas, writer for the Blue Ribbon Sports, came and joined us today to talk about some basketball. I was super excited to talk about this one. Thank you so much, Caroline, for coming on. It was a blast, and I look forward to definitely doing some more of these interview type podcasts. So I hope you guys enjoy. I'm super excited to see more women getting into sports. Obviously, that's what we're all about. Being a brocialist isn't only a male thing. It's for everyone. We like to stay gender neutral around here, so everyone's welcome to be a brocialist. So I really hope everyone enjoys. I apologize ahead of time if you're watching on YouTube. I think I might be a little bit out of sync on the video, but really good interview. Stick to the end, and we'll reconvene for some traditional casual talk, but I hope you enjoy the interview. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Brocialist. We are here with our first ever guest, Caroline Makauskas, our channeling our inner Lithuanian, according to her. And welcome to the show. Thank you for being our first guest, and welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad we can make this happen.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited as well. I stumbled on to, so I guess maybe a little background, and you can, I guess, plug any additional that I may miss. But you're a contributing editor at Blue Ribbon Sports. I don't know if that is what your contributions are limited to, but journalist. And then also, I think that you have enough followers for me to call you a TikToker. And that's how I stumbled onto you, because I remember I was just scrolling through my For You page and I stumbled onto your page. I was like, oh yeah, she knows what she's talking about. And I just went through like your whole page, and I immediately sent it to them. I was like, yeah, we have to get her on, and they can attest to that. So no, I'm excited for you to be here.
Definitely. Yeah. I started because the deal with all this now, I mean, you guys get it with your podcast, like you have to be so online. And so I wasn't gonna do the TikTok thing, and I said, you know what? It's free. Good way to get all your stuff out there,
Might as
build your
well.
brand. Might as
Yeah,
well. Exactly. So it's
I
been
still
good
haven't
so
mentioned
far.
on the TikTok yet, but I mean, I'm mostly on Twitter, so that's where
Okay.
I'm mostly operating and everything. But maybe probably someday here soon, I'll probably eventually get on TikTok because I always see them on Twitter and everything. So
Yeah, it's calling to you. I
yeah.
wasn't going to at first, and then I was like, yeah, maybe
They
maybe
they
I
just
have to.
ex- they just extended the time to 10 minutes, so I mean, more time for
yeah. I don't.
breakdowns and news for you and everything. So I mean, full 10 minutes to talk basketball, so that should be cool.
Absolutely.
I seen on TikTok they was extending it to 10 minutes, and it's like those one videos that go part two. Like you watch the whole video just to see what happens at the end. Is like part two, so we gotta wait 10 minutes now for it. So yeah, I'm an
Yeah,
avid
they
TikTok
they
user.
They put a part two at the end of a 10-minute video. I'm out. I'm out. I'm already. You
Yeah,
gave me a full movie after that. I'm good. I'm
You
good,
gotta
bro.
get blocked after that for sure.
Right. You already
That's
Yeah,
a
you
lot
already
of
switched it.
investment.
I'm reporting you. Is no part two. That's done.
No, yeah, TikTok is a great app though. I am mostly a watcher too much. Probably that's like you get your like weekly iPhone report about how much you're on your phone, and I know that it's probably hours and hours spent watching TikTok, and then I occasionally make one night when I go to a bar or something like that. But
yeah.
for the most part, I'm not a poster, but a avid digester. So no, that's definitely cool that you started obviously gaining a decent following through there too. I don't know, what's that like? Do you feel like you like owe something to your followers, your fans, whatever you want to call them? Do you feel like you have to just keep on putting it out? Like,
No, and when I think I started it in early October. I think that's my timeline, and
Nice.
I just put it on there, as like another dimension of the portfolio, I guess. It was strictly professional. I was like, I'm not going to tell anyone I know that I'm doing this because it's just, me, my clips on there, my research to show people like, hey, give me more, writing opportunities because I'm a writer first.
Right.
And that's what I do at Blue Ribbon. And it just kind of turned more into, oh, people actually kind of like it. And it's cool. I've gotten writing opportunities through it. I'm doing some stuff with Just Women's Sports right now. We're about to cover the McDonald's All-American game in
Oh,
Chicago. But yeah, I feel really weird talking on camera. It's kind of the thing. Maybe it'll never go away for me. I don't know.
Oh, well, then you signed up for the right thing to come talk on camera for an hour. So,
I know.
obviously, everyone that might be out there watching a little bit about how you even got into journalism as it is. I know that discussed a little before this that the space is not exactly the most, I don't know, necessarily female friendly, or isn't necessarily full of, women reporters and writers. It's definitely male dominated, as we see many professions in this world. But I don't know what drove you to kind of, I don't know, break that barrier, kind of get in there and grow your brand.
I have always really loved sports and I've always really loved writing. Particularly basketball has been my favorite, college basketball. I grew up a fan of the University of Michigan, so that was sort of like uh, my whole childhood was following those teams. And I went to college and I went to go study film, and then I didn't want to graduate early, so I picked up another major, and that turned out to be journalism just because I like to write. And it was one of those things where I just kind of realized that I loved it so much. And then I realized I could talk about sports and have that be a career. And it was just kind of too exciting to kind of pass up. And, in the pandemic, you kind of take a step back and nothing that you thought was going to happen happens. And so it just kind of led me to readjust and look into a new direction and kind of invest into myself and what I'm passionate about and actually give this a real shot. And it's been crazy so far. I will say starting this process in the pandemic, because I graduated May of 2020 from the University of Texas, and it's weird to start the career like mostly online when everyone's remote, but it, it it's been really interesting, and I'm glad I did it because it was something that for a while I was kind of afraid to do. And I'm really happy with it. TikTok's been a help. My mentors in the space have really been a help. So I love it. It doesn't feel like work. That's what I'll say.
dope.
Yeah, that's a cool thing that doesn't feel like work. Talking about sports and stuff. Typically, between the four of us, usually we just argue about sports a lot. So, seeing somebody, on TikTok, just a fresh face talking about certain things, because I was just going through your TikTok the last couple of days, just liking the stuff that you said about Black History Month, about equal representation for Black women, and I think it was college space. And also on WNBA and stuff like that. That was some really key points that I saw. Seeing that the fact that like most like in NFL, like I'm a big NFL guy. I'm not like into basketball per se, but seeing everything going with Black coaches in the NFL, right? Seeing you talk about that during Black History Month was pretty cool. Just seeing that all the players, like 50% of the players are Black, and then the representation of who leads them is not. So that was pretty cool. So I appreciate watching that stuff too.
Yeah, it's been a really because it takes all this time and research to like put into a video because you want it to be good. And Andre, going back to what you said earlier about like the pressure of making something good and building for the audience or whatever. And part of that is like falling down the rabbit hole of these different topics and being able to research and learn. And it's been cool for me because I now look at the sport in a completely new way, and I feel like I see it in a more complicated manner, which at times is really cool and fun, and other times it's kind of like hard to think about, as like an industry and space that I've always loved so much, and now learning kind of the layers of it that sometimes are not representative of all of the people in the space, or reflect the fan base or whatever. It's been really it's pushed me to learn, and I think that's been cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that you touch on a good thing in that I mean, ignorance can be bliss, no matter what space you're in, whether it be like sports writing or politics or social issues. And I'm not saying that it's a good thing to be ignorant, but then once you like discover about these, like you said, layers to whatever aspect that we're talking about, it can feel like more weighty and how you deal with those subjects, and you feel some maybe additional responsibility in how you communicate about these topics. And I think like in with as we speak about like representation, I guess what do you feel that I mean, obviously you're rather, I guess, new into the space as well. But I don't know, like, if you've had any initial insights since, getting into journalism as a woman in sports at that, and the social stigmas that may come with that. I know, like, social media can be like a very dark place sometimes, especially like when it comes to like talking about things like that. I mean, I I'm sure I could like go through like various comments or of women in sports, and there's probably about a lot of bad things that people say just because they want to be bad people, not because it's of any substance. So I don't know if you have any like initial insights as you've started to like enter into the space, and I don't know, maybe how you've dealt with those or what you've maybe gleaned from that in this, I guess, short period of time already.
The what I've found on TikTok specifically is the algorithm is so weird and specific, um, which means two things. One, when I find another woman who talks about sports on TikTok, it's like very quick that we connect. And people are really nice because it is such a small community of us. So it's like, oh, you too, you talk about this too. And it's very exciting. But there is a lot of I get my videos get served to people who are interested in sports, who are interested in college basketball, or like I talk college football too. And um, there are there were more at first, I think maybe, but there are a lot of people who will say stuff that you just kind of have to let go because they're going to say it regardless. And that's just kind of the way that it is. For some reason, there's this odd, misconception that it's very rare for a woman to love sports. And I don't get that because I don't think it's rare at all. I think most women that I know have at least a little bit of an interest in some sport or played some sport. And yet, when we enter different spaces that are male dominated, it sometimes can feel very, you're not welcome here, or your opinion isn't as valid. I think there is a sense for me to be like extra well researched and extra, you be on top of my business because
Right.
you make a mistake and it's people
Yeah.
will let you know. And that's fine. I want to be corrected if I say something wrong, and I want to be told if I have a typo or I made a mistake. But some of that stuff, it's not for the for people with thin skin. That's what I'll say.
Right. No, I definitely agree with that. Like, how do you? I guess how do you navigate that like on a daily basis? How do you just navigate just avoiding, like you said, avoiding, just those ignorant comments and things of that nature. How do you avoid that?
I and maybe this is like not this is how I've decided to handle it. I know that maybe other people handle it in a different way. If something is blatantly um, disrespectful in a way that it's like sexist, racist, or homophobic, I'll delete it. Which I'm all for, freedom of speech or whatever, but it's also my page and I don't need to be seeing that.
Right.
But anyone who says, like, who cares about, women's basketball or whatever, I'll just kind of let it be. And I kind of have to move forward with the attitude of I did my best. I know what I'm talking about. I'm doing what I love, and screw it.
I think you make a good point in how, and I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this, and a lot of disenfranchised genders and ethnic groups can relate to the fact that you feel like you always have to be on your P's and Q's because you always feel like you're representing your whole group. And obviously, we know that shouldn't be the case, but like one misstep. And like, I don't, like, obviously, I don't agree with anything that like Rachel Nichols said in that whole situation. And obviously, like, what she did was wrong. But she was a woman, she got like less leash to. There's been a lot worse things done within media by like white men in particular that have like been slid under the rug. That's, I'd say, the comments that she made probably would have been too, but the fact that I think that she is a woman probably hurt her more, and it kind of goes back like have these missteps as minorities in these populated space by whether it be men or white people or whatever space you're operating within, because it's so defining of everyone within the group that you're representing.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. Everyone has an implicit, bias when you go into any conversation, and I think it is true that people are less likely to. I mean, we see it all the time, and you have to think about it from an intersectional perspective, right? Like, someone who is a Black queer woman, as you said, Andre, like, is not going to have as long of a leash in these spaces, the ability to make these mistakes or missteps or however, without it being received in a particular way, as opposed to if, I don't know, I mean, not to call anyone out, but like when Joe Rogan goes and says his stuff and says what he wants to say, not that people don't criticize him for it, but, he's got his platform. Neil Young is no longer on Spotify, but Joe Rogan is, you know what I'm saying? So.
It's kind of like for certain groups of like the demographic, mostly the majority, they're not their leash, but every time someone does something that's like pushing the boundary in that type of aspect, it's kind of like, oh, he's just joking, or oh, he's just this. It's like it's like a little bit more room for them to have a mistake, and being minorities like all of us, right? We see that, and we've seen that our whole lives, but it's a little harder to let people know that that's existing if they're not in the same shoes. So that's pretty important as well.
So I don't want to make this conversation all doom and gloom, but I do think it's an important conversation to have. Yeah, I do think it is an important conversation to have. But let's get into maybe a more positive spin, and let's get into your space. College basketball. I think it's fair to levy. If anyone's watched our second episode, we talked a little bit about Caitlin Clark a little bit, but I think it's fair to levy the word casuals against us in terms of college basketball, especially whether it be men's or women's. I would definitely put us in casual. I think we all watch the NBA when we can, but I guess as we head into March, I guess both on the men's and women's side, I don't know who have been the standout like individuals before we maybe get into like the teams. Who are like the standout individuals? Obviously, we're gonna have a lot of men entering the draft, or maybe not a lot, but a handful of elite players entering the draft. Like we addressed Caitlin Clark. Obviously, Paige Beckers is coming back, but she hasn't been around. She's been out due to injury. So I don't know, who are those standouts on both sides of the spectrum for you?
I think that it's two different conversations, right? When we think about, who is the most exciting person from a draft perspective, and then who are the best contributors, all around players. On the men's side of the game, I think that Kansas's Ochai Agbaji is up there. I think he might be my favorite player to watch this year. But Kentucky's Oscar Tshiebwe, rebound machine that he has been really dominant. And we'll talk a little bit about teams later, but he's like part of what makes Kentucky so impressive. And on the women's side, I wasn't going to bring up Caitlin Clark. I'm glad that you did. Nalissa Smith on Baylor. She's a senior, so she's eligible going into the draft this year because you have to be 22 the year of the WNBA draft in order to be drafted.
Wow.
Yeah, which is, different and interesting. But Melissa Smith is so talented. She's a force on both sides of the floor. And then someone like Michigan's Naz Hillman, also a senior. She's a forward. She there I have like a running joke on my TikTok page where I think that Michigan should just retire her number right now because she's pretty much the most impressive women's player, one of the most impressive players that I think Michigan basketball has ever seen. And then you can't talk about women's college basketball without talking about South Carolina's Aaliyah Boston.
Yep.
She's my pick for National Player of the Year, which is a whole other conversation. But I mean, she's it. She is a once in a generation type of player. So I think it's the most exciting year for women's college basketball that I've seen in a minute. And maybe it's just because I'm covering it in this new way, but it's been fun. And the men this year, there's really no clear who's the best team. It's just sort of all these kind of amazing puzzle pieces around the country, and it's been kind of wild, but I've been having a good time.
And I like that you highlighted that the women's it's they're getting more of, it seems like, a notoriety. I know, I like Dre was saying, like, we're all casuals.
Hmm.
NBA we watch, college basketball we really don't watch. But just from the news that I've seen, I pretty much only seen news from the women's side because the men's has not been as exciting. Like you said, like, it's pretty even. Like, it's no really clear cut, like, mountain, like, giant who seems to be the clear favorite for the tournament. So it's just refreshing to see that the ladies are getting a spotlight for a chance, and we can kind of see, like, that shift to where, like, their game is also exciting. Like you mentioned, Aaliyah Boston. Like, I remember, like, I caught I was actually living in South Carolina, so I mean,
Okay.
South Carolina women basketball is very big down there. They're probably bigger than the football team right now. But I caught a game. I think it was like either in like the SEC tournament, and all I can remember was, like, she was a rebounding machine. Like, it was just like, if the ball hit the glass, like, she was gonna, like, come down and get it, and then they were rolling. Like, whether they were gonna keep the offensive possession going, or they were back on going back on defense. Yeah. So I mean, it's just great to see from the women's side that they are finally starting to get that notoriety because of their play. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you highlighted that.
Yeah, it's been special. It's a cool season, and I think it's true that people are covering it more. Um, Maybe that is, it's more balanced across the country. It's not just, oh, UConn is the good team, and then
Right.
everyone else is just okay. Now you have all these powerhouses developing.
Yeah.
Tennessee is consistently good. Stanford defending national champion. South Carolina, Texas, Baylor. So it's more fun than it's ever been, I think.
Yeah, and I think I've noticed that as well. Like, with this year, like I said, like, I'm, like, not very up to date with it, but, like, whenever I'm watching Sports Center and I catch, like, the standings, it always seems like there's somebody new within the top 10. So it's just like, all right, well, like, you always heard of UConn, like,
Hmm.
UConn was always at the top, but, like, now it seems like that gap is closing, and it's closing rapidly fast. Now you got South Carolina, who seems to kind of be like the top dog, but South Carolina, I mean, they got to kind of make sure that they're on their p's and q's too, because there's other teams that are coming for them as well. So it's nice to see that it's kind of evening out, because for so long UConn just straight up just dominated the women's game, and to see it, like, these other powerhouses coming about. I mean, it's great to see for the women's game.
Yeah, I know that I saw it too. I think it was one of your TikToks, and it was how, like, I think it was the Big Ten standings, and it
Hmm.
was, I don't know if it was the conference records were all like tied between three teams at the point that you made that specific video, but
Hmm.
obviously, like, the parody is really nice to see, and we talked about this in this past week's episode about the women's national team winning their settlement against the uh, whatever soccer entity that covers both them and the men, and how, like, the women like U.S. national team kind of, like, carried soccer in America, and obviously, like, a lot of that is based off, like, investment in the sport, and I think hopefully starting to see that in women's basketball. Obviously, you could speak to it better than I could. Hopefully, that's the reason why this is occurring and what we're talking about. But I think we've seen that with the women's soccer team, and hopefully, we continue to see that in other sports. I think that I mean, it's when we look at even other sports. Like I love watching like tennis, and I can watch women just and watch men. I love watching volleyball. I love watching women just as much, if not more than men. Like, so I don't see how we can't get to that place in other sports as well. But I think it's definitely really cool that there's starting to be like some parity and elevated competition across all of basketball in that spectrum.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's good for the game. It's exciting that it continues to grow like this. I think that's huge. And I don't know if you guys heard, earlier in February, the WNBA had, I think it was a $75 million total investment of funds raised to put back into the business model and kind of rework it. So, travel funds and salary and just the way that things are going to run, hopefully will be more fair and more comparable to the NBA and other professional basketball leagues around the world, because the reality of it is like WNBA players, stars, they have to play year round. They're going to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
They're going, they're living not how they want to live. They're taking time away from their families, from their social lives, from just being what it takes to be an American sports personality, to go and continue to play around the world so they can, you know, break even, so they can have enough money to just kind of live the way that they want to live. And so it's really exciting that people are continuing to pour into this, and hopefully, more people will watch. Season starts beginning of May. Mark your calendars. Hopefully, the Chicago Sky can come back and repeat the title. That'd be huge. But I'm not trying to be biased or anything.
Well, so who are your team? Not to get like too off topic, but you say you went to Texas. You're a
Mhm.
Michigan fan. You're from Chicago. Who are your mainstays? Who are the teams that you make sure that you watch and root for? I guess.
Okay, so I'm a Bulls fan and a Bears fan, and I like the Chicago Sky. I love the Cubs, but a bunch of people in my family went to Michigan, so I was raised in that love, in that mindset. And then I went to college, and you invest all that time and effort into a place. I'm bleeding burnt orange forever after that. I'm in too deep. So, and I, if I'm picking, I like baseball a lot. If I'm picking an American League team, I like the Red Sox because, I'm not going to root for the White Sox. But
Yeah.
so yeah, it's those are my spaces. I also kind of like UCLA. My sister goes to UCLA, so I'm
Oh, cool,
I'm
cool,
all
cool.
over.
Nice, nice.
Are you guys? I know you're Detroit based. You're all Lions, Pistons.
Not me.
Not you.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Not
the
me.
funny thing
Let's make
is,
that
I'm
clear.
so sorry to
yeah,
Let's
accuse you
make
of that.
no, yeah, the funny thing is Tay is whoever is winning at the moment type of fan.
Stop it.
Uh,
Stop
It
it.
is
Stop it.
fair
Let's not go
weather
there.
here.
Stop it. Stop it. Let's not go
he's
there.
Tom Brady, LeBron James fan.
Yeah.
Oh
So
man.
well, no,
Oh
I'm
man.
joking.
We gotta go
Yeah,
there
big
today.
Lions fan. Some of my friends play in the NFL too, so I gotta like switch teams sometimes. Like my friend KJ, he plays for the Broncos, so I got like Broncos jerseys and I watch that. And then a lot of my friends actually play in the NFL, so yeah, so I switch between Matthew Stafford, you know, Rams fan this year too. So I'm not gonna
Yeah,
say
you
I don't
gotta
switch
follow
teams
him.
either. Yeah,
I got you.
yeah.
Yeah, I was so like I was a military kid, so I moved around a lot. So I never like really built that like I guess relationship with like a home team where I could just like root for a home team. So like players, like I always had like favorite players. So like I primarily I watch football. So
Mhm.
like when it came to like NFL, like I was like a Michael Vick fan. I was an LT fan.
Mhm.
Then like once those guys retired, I was like, oh, Tom Brady. So I was a Tom Brady fan. So like wherever he went, like so that's what they're saying. Like he followed like the best team. It's just like,
Okay,
well,
yeah.
like they're pretty good players. So I mean, like, but yeah, so I was never able to like, I guess, develop that relationship. But they trying to adopt me to Detroit, which I will never do because it's
Bro,
the Lions
It's the
poverty
time to
franchise.
get
You're playing the
on.
game.
It's
time to
time.
get on.
It's the
It's time
time to
now.
get on.
Poverty franchise. I would look. I was look. I'm gonna say this. I was even rooting for the Bears a little bit because they got Justin Fields.
Yeah,
They got
I
Justin
like
Fields.
Justin Fields.
And
Absolutely.
I would say the one thing that I am like loyal to, and you're probably gonna hate this. Don't leave the call. Ohio State.
Oh, yeah. You were right.
Like don't leave the call. Don't leave the call. But Ohio State. That was that was like the one thing that I like hung on to. So I mean, like other than that, like I'm pretty much like a free agent with like all the professional teams. I just like players. So
Yeah, you like the game. You appreciate good
yeah,
football.
gotta appreciate greatness while it's here. Got to.
Absolutely. I believe that.
Outside of the Lions, like Detroit's a really good sports city. Like they're a top 10, like NBA wise, they have three championships. Most of the league can't say that. They're one of the best hockey teams. The Tigers have done well, obviously throughout time. The Lions, they gonna come around, bro. You gonna and don't. Yeah, and I don't come around when they do. Yeah.
I'm gonna be at the Super Bowl celebration though. With y'all.
we at the bar. You might as well jump on now, Tay. Can't get away from it.
Right. This crypto is about to go to the moon, so you better get in now. But since we are, it's March 1st, so we haven't gotten quite to Selection Sunday yet, and I kind of want to pivot a little bit to, obviously we've talked a lot about the women's, but everyone and their mother does, a bracket for March. Even if they don't watch basketball, they're doing it in class, they're doing it at work, they're doing it wherever. Everyone's doing a bracket, whether they're trying to win the prize of guessing the bracket exactly. I don't even know if they still do that. So I want to just get into a little bit of, obviously we don't have the selection yet, but there's some teams that we can take a guess who are going to get in. And to some of, I guess, maybe let's start with maybe some of your favorites on the men's side, on who you think people can maybe pencil in towards the top of their groups.
I know I said earlier that there's not one team that very clearly I have identified as the winner, but I do think, little spoiler alert here, I do think I'm going to pick Arizona to win. I just think that's the best bet. I think they're the most balanced. I think when they're landing shots, they are as dangerous as anybody. And all around, they're just tough. They're tough and they're consistent. Texas Tech, I think I'll have in my Final Four. They just lost to.
I seen Texas Tech. They haven't lost a home game.
Not at all this year.
So I mean, like like with the March Madness is obviously like away from home. So I mean, like, do you think like that'll play a like losing away like it's tough, but do you think that'll play a factor, or do they just kind of gotta like keep their head on straight and just play their game in order to being away from home in order to win?
That's a good question that I hadn't thought about. I feel like their coach Mark Adams, he's a good leader. He kind of knows the game. He's been an assistant for a long time. And he's familiar with the tournament because of, when they went with Chris Beard, who's now at Texas. But I feel like they'll be okay. They lost on Saturday to TCU, which I'm not going to call it an embarrassing loss, but I will say it's probably a loss that you don't want to have.
Not ideal.
Not ideal.
Gotcha.
It's not losing to Baylor or Kansas, but I think that was good for them. I think that's gonna kind of light a fire under them and keep them in a position where they are blinders on, focused, ready to go. I think they got something to prove, and they very well might do that. I do have an asterisk next to Kentucky. If Kentucky is healthy, they will be very dangerous. If Kentucky is not healthy, they'll be out before the Elite Eight. That's what I'm thinking.
What are
and then
health concerns looking like?
they just Yeah, they have like Ty Washington is their freshman who's very, very talented. He's kind of, got a nagging injury. They have a few people who, you got to take a game off or two, and it's just not
Right.
the whole squad, but they can still get good wins even if it's not the entire roster at full strength. But when they're all together, it's a super team. It's hard to take down.
Gotcha.
But and then I feel like you always have to have that fourth space is a space for a team that people don't really expect. Your Cinderella story of the year last year it was UCLA,
Mm.
which feels weird to call UCLA a Cinderella story, but
Yeah, all the
few
championships.
yeah, all those championships. But with a few years ago, it was like Loyola Chicago.
Hmm.
Whoever's moving in at that time, there's always got to be one. So
Twitter is so funny during March Madness with the upsets. It's hilarious. Like all the colleges are their Twitter pages just go on the bigger teams if they win. It's so fun. But
it's
yeah,
the
that's cool.
best.
No love for Gonzaga. The only reason I say that because like I said, I'm very casual,
Hmm.
men's basketball fans. But I've been hearing about like this Chet guy. Um,
Yes, Chet Holmgren.
what about the Zags? What about them? How are they looking this year?
I think it's a very good team. Andre asked me to come with teams that I thought were overrated, and that's actually my pick. I
Mm,
have I have love for Gonzaga. Um, Drew Timmy,
yep.
there. I mean, he looks like a lumberjack, but he's
Yeah, yeah.
insanely talented. And he and Chet together, that's just kind of a really powerful, aggressive duo. But I just don't think that they're as good as they have been if they're
Mm,
going to win a title, which they've not ever done. Um, I don't know that this is the year, particularly with like how all the other teams look. I just
right.
don't think they're the strongest. I don't think they're as well rounded as they were last year with like Jalen Suggs. Um, but I could be wrong. It's just I'm looking at Chet and he's so skinny and he's so I
Yeah,
just feel like there's so much development
yeah.
to
That's
be
I,
made in that whole roster.
Yeah, I definitely was thinking the same thing. Like very skillful player, but I was just thinking like baby Giannis or baby KD before they
Yeah,
made the transformation to being dominant players. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of just throw that out there and just see
absolutely.
what they were looking like. Cause I know but in the beginning of the year they were like kind of like the hot name to
Yeah.
talk about because they got Chet and everything. So yeah, so
And I could be eating my words, at the end of the month. They're looking better than ever, but that's my prediction right now.
gotcha.
Yeah, I hang out on the Pistons subreddit here and there and just like browse a little bit. And obviously, they talk about they're going to be in the lottery. So who are the guys coming out? And I always heard that Chet was skinny. I saw like him on social media and stuff like that, but I didn't really watch Gonzaga play this year. And I saw a game the other day because people were like, "Yeah, he's clearly put on some weight," and I was like, "He's clearly put on some weight. Like the person I'm looking at right now has clearly put on some weight. Like to think that he was skinnier than what he was showing is
Right.
kind of insane. I mean, obviously, like you said, Dante, we've seen people get it done at the next level, but it's just crazy to think that like someone like that is gonna have to guard like Joel Embiid for like 30 minutes or something like
That's a good
that.
pickup for Joel, man. Barbecue
uh,
chicken.
How old is he? His age?
He's a freshman.
Freshman. See, that's the thing. Like in basketball, I mean, I always heard that it's like you start training later than like typical sports just because of the way you shoot or how you move and stuff like that. That's at least what I heard. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. So like even when Giannis like got into the league, he was super skinny, but like he developed later on. I mean, they all young players, especially when you're that talented, especially going to the NBA. So they're not fully mature yet. So still hope, for the Pistons. Hopefully they get him. So
Yeah. And Chet's ceiling is so high. I feel like he has the potential. I mean, you never know, but he has the potential to be like
Yeah, I mean,
just
the skill. It's like
insane.
he's young. The skill seems to be there. I mean, obviously, like I said, he's young, so the body's still working. It's a
Hmm.
work in progress. So I mean, like, not don't want to run him off, scratch him off just yet. But yeah, I was like, man, he's really skinny. So it's just like, But they talk, but like he's just like the talk of the town, just like his his skill set and his ceiling. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see where his career goes.
Definitely.
Okay, so far some of your favorites: Arizona, I think you said Texas Tech, and was it Kentucky or Kansas?
Healthy Kentucky.
Healthy Kentucky.
Upset, we have Gonzaga. Any other upsets other than Zag?
Any other overrated teams?
I guess I should say overrated because only one person's gonna win. So
Yeah.
inevitably upsets.
I think I don't think USC, Southern California. I don't think Southern California is as good as everybody thinks. Um, I
Forgive me for being a casual. USC is actually kind of good now at basketball.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
they're ranked and in a really really competitive. There are some strong forces in the Pac-12,
Okay.
and then there are not,
Right.
but they are in the good half. I think they're a talented team. Uh, they have the height for sure. They're one of the three tallest teams in the country, and they're big and they're strong. They play great defense, but I don't know that we've seen championship type play from them. I don't think their schedule has been tough enough. They were one of the last teams to go undefeated this season, and it was just, I thought, because they didn't really play anyone who was that good. But maybe that's I know that's unpopular in some circles. Maybe that's my UCLA bias coming out, but I think they're not as good as people think. And then Houston also has a few injuries. If they were completely healthy, they would be repeating a Final Four run. Um, but they're not, unfortunately. So I wouldn't have them going too far either.
So you talked about the schedules a little bit. I mean, at this point, because for the most part, like in terms of college, I mean, I guess you could say in professional too, but like football runs what's going on and how these schools move. And obviously, we saw with Oklahoma and Texas, like they're making their moves because of college. So, in terms of basketball, and we can talk about men's and women's in this regard. What are some of those like powerhouse conferences? Because when it's football, it's SEC. You hear some Big Ten here and there, but it's SEC, SEC, SEC. But I mean. I don't know if SEC is still. Obviously, I don't think it's to the level in basketball as it is in football, like how dominant it is. But I don't know. What are some of those stronger conferences when it comes to basketball?
For the women's side, it's definitely the SEC. They are so loaded, it's unbelievable. And the Big 12 for men's and women's, very strong all the way across. The Big Ten is always pretty good. I feel like the Big Ten is a basketball conference. Sorry to Ohio State or Michigan football, but like it, it's it's a basketball conference. They're basketball schools.
At the
It,
north, it's cold. The
yeah, it's
north is cold. You got
cold.
the
They're
domes and stuff.
they're in the gym.
Yeah.
That's just the way that it goes. But the SEC has been really impressive. I mean, they have how many teams? I'm looking at a list right now. They've got Auburn, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky. It's just a good, deep Alabama. It's a deep field. And then, when we get to what, 2025, when OU and Texas move over, it'll
Oh
be
yeah.
even deeper, both
Yeah.
men's and women's, because they're both really strong traditionally in the women's game. But the men's, well, you know what, they had a coaching change, so I'm not going to hold that against them. Oklahoma's got a good men's team this year, but you know, they're in the rebuild.
No, it's funny you talk about Kentucky because I see Kentucky's like leading the nation in rebounds and third in assists. I only like Kentucky basketball or ever watch them
Mhm.
just because I'm like a huge Drake fan and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
I like Kentucky. A lot of my family's in Kentucky too, so that's who I'm rooting for the bracket this year. So
And I think they could go deep. That's
yeah,
a that's a talented team.
Okay, so I want to shift a little bit. We've talked about some favorites and overrated teams, but who are maybe some of like the dark horse teams? And we aren't like a betting site, but a lot of people like to bet on games. So like, or like,
Right.
those middle of the tier teams that can maybe make a run, maybe make someone a buck, it just help them win their pool at work or something like that. We don't know what the bracket's gonna be laid out as, but those maybe. I don't know, teens and 20s in the AP, and then I don't know, maybe some of them even not ranked at all.
Yeah. I think Tennessee is a team. I think they're like mid-teens right now. They've had some good wins. They just beat I don't remember the week. I think they just beat Auburn. Um or they definitely have an Auburn win under their belt this season. But Tennessee's a good team in terms of like the smaller, like mid-majors. Davidson will probably win a game or two. St. Mary's could win a game up in Northern California. People are talking about Iona, which is where Rick Pitino is right now. He was at Louisville for a minute.
Oh yeah.
Um, I feel like Villanova's a little overrated. I know that wasn't the question, but I forgot to say them earlier. Yeah, I think those are my. I like the mid majors. I think Loyola could win a game or two again. I like to see them shake things up, make some noise. I think that's fun.
Loyola Chicago, right?
Yes, indeed.
It's crazy how like they still like when was it the 2019 2020 championship where they kind of first came into like relevance?
It was either that year or a year or two before.
It's crazy how they're like kind of still like in like they're like kind of like that mid tier dark horse team where you can still that can make a mark on the tournament because like usually you see with like Cinderella teams and like they go away after like that 1 year but like they like remain consistent and still if I don't know what they're looking like with getting selected into the tournament but like they're still like making that push to make a name for themselves and make some noise in the tournament because like usually you don't see like small teams like that you know carry over and carry over
Right.
for years and years to come because of they're going against bigger schools with like better funding and able to get bigger name players to come to their school. So it's just it's kind of crazy and great to see that they're kind of like still like hey, don't come tournament time, like we will be a force. So don't overlook us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with them, I mean, I think it's a bunch of stuff. One, you have the Chicago talent pool right there. I'm gonna brag on Chicago. We have excellent basketball talent out here.
Yeah,
And right there being in their backyard, maybe kids who were overlooked a little bit by the bigger schools, or maybe kids who they want to stay closer to home, can come and play at Loyola. They usually are one of the better teams in the Missouri Valley Conference to the point where they're moving conferences next year. They're going to the Atlantic 10, so it'll be a whole new um, level of competition for them, which is cool. And
right.
then, they had a great coach for so long, Porter Moser, who's now at Oklahoma, and Drew Valentine. He's actually the youngest coach in Division One. He's now leading them. He's Denzel's brother, and he was a grad assistant under Tom Izzo at Michigan State, and he spent some time at Oakland. And I just think he's such a good coach, such a good leader. So they've got the winning recipe over there. I think that consistently that will be a special program.
Gotcha. What about like on the women's side? Just like those kind of like sleeper teams.
Sleeper teams on the women's side. I feel like a team maybe like Florida, who they had some wild uh, coaching issues in the off season. They had to pick up a new head coach who was the interim. She actually, I think I just heard she got her interim tag removed. No one really expected them to be particularly good this year, and they're having an outstanding season. They could feel like Florida could be maybe an Elite Eight team. People aren't thinking about them. Um, Indiana or Maryland, teams that didn't win the Big Ten, weren't in contention to, it was sort of they didn't win the right games when they needed to near the end of the regular season, and then they don't get the regular season title, but they're full of talent. They got great coaches, particularly Maryland, Brenda Fries. She's a seasoned coach. She knows what she's doing. I feel like those three could really make it happen. And I'm not about to call LSU with Kim Mulkey, who was at Baylor a long time. I'm not going to call
Mm.
LSU an underdog.
Right.
But
Yeah, that name's. I remember her. She was at Baylor for a minute. So
yeah, she is a powerhouse. She's got quite a few titles under her belt as a player and as a coach. So she's really turned that program around, and they could make a run too. But I mean, I think it's South Carolina's to lose for sure.
gotcha, gotcha. USC, USC.
Are they? Is that the? Do they go by USC as well?
That down there, yep. They call them USC down there. Yep.
Sometimes I'll mix it up and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm talking about USC today. We're talking about Aaliyah Boston or Dawn Staley, who's their excellent coach, and
Hmm.
people will comment like, there's only
What?
one USC.
Right, and I would do that too because I know my parents like, yeah, we're going to the USC game. I'm like, y'all in Cali?
Yeah.
What are y'all doing in Cali? What y'all doing in Cali? Like, no, we're going to South Carolina. Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Um, One other thing that I thought I would ask is that, we've talked about so many teams from this point, and I consider myself like ahead of the curve when it comes to like football knowledge. But there's only 32 teams for me to watch in the NFL, and like a handful to watch in college, just based on there's no like large tournament. You have your four usually, and then your maybe conference winners and stuff, and maybe a few bowl games that you want to watch. But how do you have like? I assume you don't have like a war room with like 50 TVs watching all these
Right.
games. But I don't know how you can like have an encyclopedia in your head of what's going
Love
on
the
with
game,
so
man.
many. There's all these conferences, all these players that we've talked about. Just I don't know, like how have you always been like that? Is it like developed over time? I don't know, like if you were younger, were you always like in love with all these various conferences, or is that something that kind of like grew as you became more interested in saying like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna talk about sports. I'm gonna start really watching and understanding, and then this is just a really long question, but then also like, how did you start to like learn? Obviously, it doesn't sound like you came from a collegiate playing background, which is fine, but how do you coach yourself to like understand the game? Because we started to see like a lot of just like great minds like in all sports that you don't have to play a sport to understand it, but I do think it like maybe increases the floor. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a ton of people that talk about football that played football that don't know what they're talking about, so I
Nothing.
don't want to get that twisted, but I do think it makes it more difficult when you haven't. So I don't know, how have you gotten into know so many teams? How have you built your acumen around just the sport in general as a watcher and a viewer? Sorry, that was really long-winded, but
It's all good. What I will say is I did play basketball growing up. I stopped before I stopped playing with like school and travel when I was like 15 maybe. So it didn't ever get to that point. But I did play. So I had the base like familiarity with the game in that regard. And like I said, growing up, we were very much so. We were a Michigan household. Um, I have, I think, hidden or burned all of the photos of me, through the years, with braces at the big house or, wearing my big t-shirts in front of the TV when I'm like missing teeth, but, so I started with like that Big Ten brain, and that was everything. It was just all Big Ten all the time. And then you get a little bit older. Actually, I said I went to film school first and foremost. So when I was younger, I really wanted to go to USC. So I started learning, all about USC football and whatever. And, ironically, then I go to Texas for college, and I think about that like 2005 national championship game. It's like the
Right.
greatest sporting event I didn't care about at the time. But then you get to college and all of a sudden it's Big 10 and Big 12. And then, my sister's out in the Pac-12 in UCLA. And so then it just kind of builds and builds. And as I got older, I think probably just as you guys with the NFL, I mean, specifically Dante, loving all the greats all over the country. Fair weather fan over here.
Yeah.
You pick up the knowledge just because it's so fun and it's cool to like watch all these players. And the transfer portal became more of a thing in the last few years, and it's really more like just a good time for me all around. So I get really excited. I'm very research based. I love to, read and learn. I'm a very big nerd in that way. So I'll get really I'll sit on Ken Palm for hours and look at, like basketball analytics. And then I'll sit and look at, ooh, what are conference realignments looking like in the next few seasons? And it's just like, it's so much fun for me. So it's not difficult to want to seek out all this information. And then I will fall down the rabbit hole and just.
So I'm not that familiar with basketball in general, but what is Ken Palm? Is it Ken Palm? What is it?
Yeah.
Like all in
So
general.
the guy, his name is Ken Pomeroy. He was a meteorologist for the government for like more than a decade. And he loves math and he loves basketball. So early 2000s, I think maybe like 2003, he decided, okay, I'm going to turn this into a website. It's going to be for me. We're going to focus on statistics for Division 1 men's basketball, and we're going to look at the basic stats like free throw percentage or total blocks in a game, and we're going to keep track of all of that, pay attention to the box score, but we're also going to expand upon it and look at like, okay, percentage of minutes played for the team. So like how much does this player play of all of the team's minutes for this season? And it's just little by little, all these different details. It's very nerdy. It is a math lover's paradise. And so for the intersection of us, people who love math and love college basketball, it's the best.
Dope, dope. Is it only used in college basketball?
He only has it for Division 1 men's college basketball.
Okay.
I wish it
Yeah.
was more. I think it would be cool to like be able to follow the stats into the NBA and see
Yeah,
how
for
things
sure.
translate and whatever, but
Oh,
or
well,
for the
you just have
women's.
to you just have to turn on all your TVs and start writing it all down as it's
Yeah,
happening. You have to be the
exactly.
originator.
Right, right,
I am
right.
guilty. Sometimes I'll do laptop on one, TV on the other, and sort of
Hmm.
like watch them at the same time, but especially during tournament season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and one last thing I want to say, I guess, about the tournament, just to wrap up the tournament talk, is that I don't know. What do you think? I think the tournament's obviously special in the regard that so many teams get the opportunity to claim them being the best in the world and one of the best leagues of play. But makes it so special because I know, like, when I think of like when the Lions inevitably don't make playoffs, I traditionally root for the best team because I want to see the best teams play each other. Like, I enjoy the best football possible. I traditionally say the same thing about basketball, even though I might carry some bias here or there. So, what do you think makes just the setup of the tournament on both sides just such a spectacle that I don't know the nation like kind of galvanizes around like no like even people that don't watch basketball, college basketball, they everyone watches March Madness in some way or form.
I think that it's special to see people at all levels of the sport. Someone from the tiniest school, South Dakota State from the Summit League, right? Make their way into the tournament and have a shot to knock off a team that's on primetime cable every week. I think it's exciting to because all these kids have stories, and that's why I love college basketball. It's very human. There's so much space for anyone could win on any given night. And it's just kind of exciting to get swept up in that, into the storylines, to learn more about these people and where they're from and why they love basketball, and get to see the best of the best. And I think that's why it's cool. I think the 64, I guess now 68 team field that we have in college basketball is a better representation of who the best is than like the college football playoff model, which I'm not a fan of,
Yeah.
because it's just the same people over and over and over again. And I don't like rankings. I'm not a fan of like the AP poll model, just because I think there's space for bias in that as well. Though I do think it's more fair in basketball than it is in football. I just think it's cool to see people get so excited about being on the biggest stage, because that's what it is. And some of these kids never thought they'd have the opportunity to do it. So you're watching these people achieve like a huge bucket list item, and it's really, I think it's so special.
Dope, dope. Yeah, I agree. Like just like the story, like America always loves a good story, like
Mhm.
that Hollywood story. So like, we talked about Loyola Chicago. They're the Cinderella, and they're going against like Goliath. Like everybody's going to be rooting for David because I mean like he's an underdog, and we know like it's probably a good shot that he doesn't stand. They don't stand a chance. But just that but that slight chance,
Mhm.
that they can win. I guess that's just what the country galvanizes towards, and what we love so much about the tournament because like I said, we're all casual, very casual college basketball fans. But I mean like we'll be filling out a bracket here once selection Sunday comes out, and they'll have the names out, and we'll be filling out a bracket knowing we probably aren't going to win, but just to fill it out and have that anticipation of what the tournament will be. I think that's definitely what the country galvanizes towards about the both tournaments, about like the men's and from the women's side as well, because the women's has great stories as well.
Yeah, and it's fun to have stake in every game. That those first 2 days, that first weekend of the tournament, that's my favorite, you know, 2 days of the whole year. I love that. When you care so much, probably way too much about every single game, it's just too fun.
I think that's kind of like some because me, Dre, and Dante, we haven't like went to any college basketball games. Have you guys been to any college basketball games? I mean, I know
I
because
don't
we
think
went
I
to
ever have.
Northwood. Yeah, like we went to Northwood, so it's like a smaller school. They play exhibition games against Michigan and stuff like that. But like, I never really went, so I feel like I lost that whole experience of like college basketball in college. So that's why I kind of don't watch it that much now. I wish I did because I know in other colleges, like bigger colleges, like it's the biggest thing on earth. So I think that's where it stems from, me not watching college basketball, which I probably should start watching. I mean, there's nothing else to really do at this time because the football's over and stuff like that. So I guess I should tune in a little bit more.
Yeah, and just like the piggy bank, like off of what the Abs was saying, like why like this year, like we really haven't like I was saying earlier, like I've seen more like women's basketball news than I've seen guys. So like why do you think like I guess I don't know what like the ratings are looking like for men's basketball and stuff like that, but like why do you think like it's being less talked about this year compared to other years? Because like we don't have a Zion Williamson or a Ja
Right.
Morant like coming out. It's just like we don't know who's coming out. We don't have that name, I guess, to look forward to the future
Yeah.
like or as many. We have like a couple, but that's pretty much it. So why do you think like it's maybe not? To me, it just seems like it's not getting as much buzz as it usually has. Maybe it's just me being a casual, but if you can speak on that, like why do you think like I don't know, maybe the appeal isn't as strong as it usually is?
I'm not sure. I wonder if there's any lingering feeling of we're still kind of in the COVID phase of college basketball, because there have been games this season that were canceled, that weren't able to be rescheduled. So there's still a big conversation for that. I think maybe the fact that we don't know who the clear number one is
Mm.
going to be, it's a bigger pool. There's that as well. I don't really know. I do know that maybe it does feel a little bit off. Um, but yeah, I didn't know if that was just a me thing or if it
Yeah,
was something that other people
cause like
noticed
I
either.
because like I don't want to speak for like everyone, but like I'm not like we all have said like we're not the most avid college basketball fans, but like we've at least heard like some news, whether it be
Hmm.
like a player or a team just being like on top of everybody and just like crushing opponents, or just like a story. And it seems like we haven't really gotten a lot of that this year. We've gotten it from the women's side
Yeah.
a little bit, but
Yeah.
in terms of the men and just college basketball overall, it just doesn't seem like the notoriety is there and the buzz about it isn't as strong as it usually is. So I didn't know if that was just me being a casual, or if this was just like something like that you felt too, or you know.
It has it been like an uprising of players coming out of high school, like going professional, like other places than going rather than go than college, right? Is that talent lost, like in college basketball, sphere? Is that maybe why? Because I know it's like, has it been like a different rule change or something like that with college basketball, or
They
like
can
going to the
go
NBA?
they can go straight to another professional, like, you know, uh LaMelo Ball, he went and he played
Yeah,
in Eastern Europe. Did he play in
Yeah,
Lithuania?
yeah, he played in
yeah, it's
Lithuania.
Yeah,
Lithuania.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
And then
Nice.
he, came back. Now he's with Charlotte, but they can go do that. They can play internationally. I think there's a rule about there are specific, like, I don't know if it counts as the G League. I know that they've got other stuff cooking that's like it's an alternative to college. I
Yeah,
do think that's a super interesting conversation in terms of like, the kids who they know they're going to be one and done, so they want to just continue to only focus on their game and develop that.
Hmm.
I don't know that it takes away from the storylines. I don't know if it takes away from the total stars because I think basketball will always need stars. I just wonder, I mean, maybe it is as simple as the women's game is really exciting this year and people are finally starting to put more eyes on it. But once the tournament rolls around, I mean, naturally, right? I feel like people are going to get really into it. I feel like we're going to have
yeah.
good stories. It's going to feel different. Krzyzewski, Coach K at Duke, he's retiring after this. That's going to be a huge deal. He's about to have his last home game. So maybe it's just a later in the season thing. I'm not sure.
Well, we appreciate all the March Madness talk. Couple more questions, and
Sure.
we'll hold you all night long. Uh, but I was curious about, and you said you're a writer. So do you ever have any like goals to get into like talking and being like in broadcasting? Obviously, that's pretty early on, but I know like early in my career, I was like, okay, yeah, I definitely like can see my this going a different route completely.
Um, in college, I always swore I would never do broadcast. No one needs me in front of the camera. No one wants to hear me talk about stuff. I would just get very shy about all of that. Obviously, I've grown a little bit in that department. I'm more willing to do that. Writing is my first love. I would much rather, I think, do editorial, but who knows? I'm not trying to block myself off. I I like screenwriting as well. My first thought of what I wanted to do, like for a substantial part of college was I thought I was just going to be a screenwriter. So this kind of gives me a best of both worlds situation, but maybe broadcasting is in my future. I do not know.
What is your now off that? What do you like to screen or like what was like your initial like I don't know like what genres like interested you in terms of like writing now completely just off of basketball just about
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what
Um, I really like I really like dramas. I'm 23, So right now I'm like, man, I love writing coming of age stuff, but I think that's just kind of like the spot that I'm in right now. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I love coming of age movies, but I don't know that that will last forever. You know what I'm saying?
I assume you're a
Um,
big fan of like Booksmart. That was a great movie.
I
Did you
love
like that
Booksmart.
movie? Okay.
Yeah, I love it. I actually love that screenwriter a lot. I think she's super talented. But I, yeah, I'm not very funny, so comedy is like kind of a hard space to get into. So, but yeah, I love it. I still, it's something that I do on the side. I don't do it as much, but I always try to be working on, like a couple projects at once, at least in the screenwriting space.
Gotcha. That's cool.
All right. Well, then before we let you go, what are your desert island movies? Obviously, this isn't the same as your top five movies. These are the movies that you have to watch until if you're ever rescued.
How many
The
you
five
giving?
movies, five.
Five?
You get five. You can, you have a little solar like thing, and it hooks up to a
Okay.
TV and a DVD player. You get
Okay.
five movies.
Oh, this is hard. Okay, my favorite movie of all time is Creed. I've never seen a Rocky movie in my life,
What?
but
I
Creed
like
is
Creed.
my favorite film.
I like the fir- I like all the Creeds, but the first one, yeah, I really like the first one.
The
I
first one
love
is
Rocky
crazy.
movies.
Yeah, I know I have to see them.
You
I know
have
I
to.
do. It's ridiculous. I went to film school and now I'm a sports writer. I've never seen Rocky. It's dumb, but I love Creed. That's one. I think uh, I love Brian Coogler a lot.
Yeah,
Creed one.
fantastic director. Yeah,
Yeah, he's the best. He's
yeah.
so talented.
If it says Ryan
Um,
Coogler on it, probably gonna go see it because it's just like the
absolutely,
storyline and everything. Like it's just great. So,
absolutely. Um, this is hard. Lady Bird. You guys ever see that movie?
Lady Bird.
It is about a young white woman. She's a senior in high school. She goes to Catholic school. She fights with her mom, and then she goes across the country to college to be a writer. So basically, it was made for me, when you're 17.
I was like,
Every
this is you.
17-year-old girl fights with their mom. Um, yeah, shout out to my mom though. She rocks. That is up there. I love it. When something's like you're like, I know this was made for me. This is it. I'm feeling it. That's mine. Uh, that's two. I'll go a lot faster. I'm sorry. Finding Nemo,
Oh,
top tier.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Heathers. You guys ever
you
see
cry.
Heathers?
Heather's. Mm-mm.
Christian Slater and she was in Stranger Things. I feel horrible for forgetting her name, but it's like a dark comedy.
Winona
Um,
Ryder.
yes, yes, Winona Ryder. That movie rules. Was that four? And then
Yeah, we got four right now.
five is the 1966 Batman movie with Adam West with like
Really,
the shark repellent and stuff.
really. Are you gonna go see the new Batman movie?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see it. I can't wait.
Yeah, yeah. Me and Dre are going this week, so I hearing a lot of a good buzz about it. Last time I checked, like a 97 or 91 on Rotten Tomato. I mean, 3 hours long, but you know what? If it's got that rating, I'll sit
Yeah.
through it. I'll sit
Oh,
through
I'm
it.
so
So
excited. I remember, I mean, it took them like years to film it because of all the COVID stops and whatever, but I remember when they announced that Paul Dano was going to be the Riddler, and I was like, this has the potential to be the craziest casting of all time. I'm so
yeah,
excited.
I think they
Ugh,
nailed it with the casting.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they nailed it, and I think the Riddler is a great villain for this Batman to dive in for people to dive into and get more familiar with. So it's definitely going to be one of the most talked about movies of the year, like by far. Like people are already talking about it, but like after like going forward, I mean, it's gonna be action movie wise. I don't know about like other genres and stuff,
Yeah.
but just action movies, and I would even say overall, like it's gonna be one of the most talked about films of the year, just because of the buzz it's gotten, the good buzz it's gotten before, and then now till we're getting reviews and stuff. So can't wait to see it.
No way. I'm so excited. What you guys, your desert island, your solar power movies. What are yours?
Oh.
I'll try and rattle mine off. Interstellar, Hitch, School of Rock,
Okay.
probably maybe Dodgeball. Or no, sorry, not Dodgeball. Friday. I'll take Friday,
Okay.
and probably Remember the Titans.
Yeah, I gotta have Remember the Titans in mind because that's like probably my favorite movie of all time. So Remember the Titans is definitely one. Shrek 2. Shrek
Yes.
2. I gotta I was like, dang, I gotta have one of the Shreks on there because like I love comedy movies.
Yeah.
So I was like, gotta have Shrek. So I'm gonna have Shrek 2 on there. It's so many more. I'm a big MCU like nerd, so
Okay.
like I gotta have one of them. It's kind of hard I will probably just go with Infinity War because it's
Okay.
like because we did on one of our episodes we did like the poll of the MCU movies.
I
so
watched
that's
it.
Yeah.
I have critiques, but
Oh no, she about to hit hot seat. Hot seat. But yeah, I would have Infinity War. I say Shrek 2. Remember the Titans, Infinity War. I only got 3 right now. I know it's more, but at the top of my head, that's pretty much what I would probably right now. Probably one of the probably Rush Hour 2 too.
I was just about to say that. That's my number one movie. Like I can watch that movie in rotation. My mom had like a bunch of cassette tapes, and we just watch it like over and over. It's hilarious. What else? I can't even think about it off the top of my head right now, which is crazy. I love movies though. I watch movies till I die. Interstellar is probably one of my favorites. Yeah, I can't really think about it. There's so many of them. Star
for me,
Wars,
I gotta
you know,
have
Star Wars, the Star Wars, not the new one, the first one when we were kids because we were all around the same age. The prequels, I loved them. People didn't like them, but I loved them. So
I like the third one. What is that?
is
Revenge
it
Revenge of the Sith? Yeah,
no?
Revenge
Is
of the
it-
Sith? Is
yeah,
that
is
Revenge of the
it-
Sith is
I
third
think it's
one. Yep.
Revenge of the Sith.
I
Yeah.
love that one.
Yeah, I know for me, I had to have some comedy in there because if I'm stuck on a desert, I'm gonna be laughing while I'm doing it too. So I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna.
Hey, I get it.
For sure. Well, we really appreciate it, Caroline. Everybody, Caroline Makauskas, contributor for Blue Ribbon Sports, TikToker, journalist. Maybe you'll see her on TV soon. We'd obviously love to have you back and talk some more sports, maybe movies. But I don't know. Do you want to? What's your TikTok? I don't know the name off the top of my head, but so people can.
Yes. It is, I'm like looking it up, make sure I don't do it wrong. It's at CMAKAUSKAS, at C Makauskas. Yeah, check me out. We do cool stuff over there. We're learning.
Great TikTok. See Makauskas. See you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.
All right.
Hopefully, everyone enjoyed our conversation with Caroline Makauskas, writer for the Blue Ribbon Sports. A great conversation. I think Dabs and Tay, you can attest that was a great conversation. We all enjoyed it. So hopefully you all gained some March Madness insight when your bracket at work or wherever. Maybe you win some big money on some of those tips that Caroline gave us. Thank you a lot for coming on the show. We'd love to obviously have you back. You can see Tunes back. This is the next day, so you can see us maybe in some different clothes. We're recording this one the next day, and we're gonna get into some warm up. So for warm up today, I found this tweet from Nickelodeon, and it was about building your dream Sunday morning cartoon lineup. So obviously, if you're an audio listener, this might be a little hard, but I'll do my best to explain it. They said you have $20 and they have a $1 row, $2 row, $3 row, $4 row, and $5 row, each with 4 cartoons. So the more expensive the cartoon, presumably the more popular it is. So I'll throw it up for the guys up here and the YouTube viewers. But towards the top in the $5 row, you'll see shows like Avatar, Fairly Odd Parents, Rocket Power. And then at the bottom, you'll see shows like Rocko's, Chalk Zone. In the middle, you'll see shows like Cat Dog. So there's 5 tiers of shows. You got $20 to build your Saturday morning cartoon lineup. What are you putting together for all the chilling out there?
I'll lead it off.
$20.
Let me
Crazy King.
Let me start off with Avatar for sure. SpongeBob for sure.
Five.
No, that's 10. I mean, that's 9. Or, yeah, 9, right? That's $9.
Yeah, that's 9 right there.
Then give me Danny Phantom, Teenage Robot, and Rocco.
Got 14.
And then
So you
give
got
me
$5.
They got
Fairly
LT
Odd
there?
Parents.
I guess I can go next. Definitely give me Rocket Power. So that's 5 off the board right there. So $5 well spent. Give me Danny Phantom next, 7. Go ahead and give me Jimmy Neutron. That's 11. Got $9 more. Huh? 9 more. Ooh, Chalk Zone for the cheap. Give me Chalk Zone for the $1. That's a bargain right there. What am I at now? 12.
$12.
I'm gonna have a nice little marathon for y'all. Give me I said I got $8 more left, or how many more dollars I got?
Yep.
Give me
$8.
Invader Zim, Avatar, and Doug. That's a solid fucking marathon. That's a full morning for you.
I'm looking.
I wasn't
at-
really a Doug watcher, to be honest. I wasn't really a
I
Doug
mean, I'm not
watcher.
picking
I
Rocco.
was
And
gonna
what is
watch it
that?
too.
What is that X's?
Rocco is fire, bro.
Yeah, I never-
I'm
I never
with you,
fuck with
Dad.
Rocco.
Rocco
Yeah, I
is
didn't-
fire.
It's not better than
Watch
Chalk
Rocco
Zone.
either.
For sure
Hell
is.
no. But I
I
digress.
probably watch.
I mean,
I
it's
probably
better.
watch Chalk Zone more than
Go ahead,
Rocco.
Tay. I think I got the longest marathon, right? I got like 7 of them bitches. Yeah, I'm a good
All
Saturday.
right, so $20. So Avatar for sure. Got that. That's number 1. I'm gonna go probably Fairly Odd Parents next. So that's 10 off the board. Then I'm gonna go SpongeBob. Gotta have SpongeBob. I got it specifically. I gotta have the seasons from like, was it 2002? From like 2007. That was like elite, like cartoon television right there. With SpongeBob, Jimmy Neutron. I used to love that show. Growing up, so that's 18. Last one, Danny Phantom. So my list is pretty short, but
Yeah, you got the powerhouse lineup.
I got the powerhouse lineup. So I just stuck with the. If it was $21, I would have probably went with because I think My Life as a Teenage Robot is like very underrated, but I think people acknowledge that being like a very underrated show that we all like. It just doesn't get talked about a lot. But if it was like 21, I would have probably picked Teenage Robot over Danny Phantom because I really mess with Teenage Robot.
Yeah, I don't know how SpongeBob is $4 on this list. In my opinion, like even though SpongeBob isn't maybe my favorite cartoon, I feel like SpongeBob is like the GOAT cartoon. Like its prime was so long, and with so many episodes with the original creators and stuff. So I'm for sure taking SpongeBob. I'm taking Jimmy Neutron. I'm taking Rocco. So that puts me at 9. I'm taking Fairly Odd Parents.
That's a good choice.
That puts me at 14. And then I'll take Rugrats and Invader Zim.
Did I get Invader Zim? I think I
Did
did.
you
That
have
was nice.
SpongeBob?
I think you did.
Yeah.
No, you had SpongeBob too?
No, I think I had
Toon didn't have
Invader-
SpongeBob.
Oh no, Toon didn't
Invader
have.
Zim, I
And
was
that's
saying.
Toon didn't have SpongeBob.
What's your hate
Wow.
against SpongeBob?
What's
I
yeah,
never
what's
really
up
like
with that?
SpongeBob that much. I like the one episode when they do karate.
Really?
This episode when they go to the beach gym. And
They do
Really?
karate in
Wow.
like 30 episodes of
got
SpongeBob.
the muscles.
Yeah,
We must be talking about the
that's
first one.
crazy.
But yeah, my least favorites on here got to be like Angry Beavers, Cat Dog.
Yeah. If you have any disagreements with our takes, or maybe just leave your list if you're watching it. Maybe if you write a review or leave a comment, leave your list of how you'd build out your $20 team. But next up on the doc, we're going to get into some what's happening now. Really short week this week on what's happening now. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about Ukraine and stuff. Hopefully, they're all doing well. Obviously, they aren't. They're fighting a war, but hopefully as many people are staying safe as possible. But Biden appoints his nominee for the empty Supreme Court seat. I just wanted to say a few things that were just in general about the state of the Supreme Court as of lately. So obviously, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away at the end of Trump's presidency, and that was a pretty like significant loss for, I think, the left of America. Not saying that like Ruth Bader Ginsburg is like some super progressive or anything like that, but they lost a whole seat to the conservative justices, so it went from 5-4 to 6-3 conservative. So that was a huge loss because she was trying to essentially ride out another presidency, and obviously she passed away beforehand. So kind of a mistake. Like obviously, rest in peace. Fault. But like, yeah. Well, from my understanding, she wanted to stick around to see Hillary, like the first woman president, and that I could be wrong in that assumption, obviously, but I think that she probably should have got ahead of the curve and got out while Obama was still president, the same way that this current justice that's leaving is doing now. Essentially, they're getting out ahead of the curve because if the Democrats lose the next election, and let's say Republicans were president for the next 8 years, you're already in your 70s, like, so you're signing up for another 8 years on the job because they don't want to leave while the other president's in power. So obviously they're getting ahead of the curve. He appoints Ketanji Brown, some of her, qualifications. She went to Harvard Law, so obviously the most prestigious law school probably in the world, arguably. A lot of Supreme Court justices have come from there. She was a Supreme Court clerk, so kind of worked for the Supreme Court before. Vice chairs of the Sentencing Commission. I don't know exactly what goes into that role. She was a judge on the District Court of Appeals and in DC and the U.S. District Court of Appeals. So obviously a pretty, tenured individual in terms of, federal public service. But the one different thing about her is Ketanji Brown is the first ever public defender, like person that practiced as a public defender to be on the Supreme Court. So I don't know her record on, crime and, the war on crime and such and sentencing. But obviously, if you're being a public defender, you're defending people that can't afford counsel. So, and usually those are more selfless individuals because you're not paid super well to do all the hours of work to defend people that can't afford counsel. So hopefully it's a good change. Obviously, she's not like some radical leftist that's probably like Fox. Yeah, that Fox News is probably making her out to be. I mean, it's just so funny to juxtapose this against Amy Coney Barrett, who they like rushed through at the end of Trump's presidency, like because she was probably the least qualified ever, and to like challenge Ketanji Brown's qualifications up against Amy Coney Barrett, who you put through is. It's a non-argument. It's not no competition. Obviously, Amy Coney Barrett had never been a judge. She had never worked in like public service. She pretty much like never practiced as a lawyer whatsoever. Like almost the like least qualified individual for the job, and got it. So obviously, there's some privilege there. I don't think that the Republicans will push back too hard because they still have the majority, and it's not worth their breath. But they'll still have their quip. So. I just wanted to make sure people know what's going on there. I don't know if anyone has any comments about Ketanji or just the state of the Supreme Court in general. I just want to say, like, this is like, regardless of how you feel, if you're like a left-leaning person, about how you feel about Biden, like, this is why it's important to like win these elections, because the president gets to appoint these people. And, like I said, if Trump was still around for another 4 years and then they win again, and then let's God forbid that one of the current justices pass away, then you end up with a 7-2 court, and then you get more voting rights taken away, and you get more reproductive rights for women taken away. So I just dominated that section. I apologize, but any thoughts from Tay, Toon?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head on that one. I mean, I don't have anything further. So I think, like you said, you touched on, she was a public defender, and that's the first of any Supreme Justice. So I hope her being a public defender, she can take what she did at that job and do it the same as being a nominee, because it's not official. So yeah, I mean, hopefully, she can bring her selflessness, bring those traits to the job as a Supreme Court justice as well. So yeah, I don't got nothing more after that.
Just please help Black people in the best way you can. elected officials. I would appreciate some change, and everybody else would as well.
So what we sitting at now, Dre? What's the majority?
It's not going to change. It's 6-3 conservative.
Who the next one out of there? Who about to croak? Is it?
Oh, it's still 6-3. I thought it wouldn't be 5-4.
No, because the person who's retiring is a liberal justice. So, if anything, it's probably, I think the older justices, because we just got, there'd be this appointment for Ketanji. I believe the rest of the liberal justices aren't old, but they aren't young either.
Yeah.
Like, I would say the older justices left on the Supreme Court currently are conservative.
Yeah, so we gotta. Like you said, that's why it's important to vote. Because if those old ones start, croaking, they're gonna keep that majority. But I feel like it just keeps switching every time when it comes to those presidential elections. Like everyone blames the president for everything, and then you have a mass rush to, the Republican side, and they do bad. Everyone votes Democratic, and ain't nobody doing shit for us. So this is the one thing I think that people do need to pay attention to when they vote, that it's more than just the president, because some years the presidents don't even have really much effect on our life. So just make sure you guys are looking at the finer details of who you're voting for and if you're deciding to vote, because it does matter. What we got next, Dre?
Well said.
Sure. So we'll get off of the news.
We don't want to talk. We don't want to talk no
today.
Ukraine or nothing.
I think I'll save my rant for probably next week, because it probably take up a lot of time. So
For sure.
not a lot of time, but
Prayers up. Prayers up.
yeah, prayers up for Ukraine. Next up, though, obviously we had a lot of basketball talk with Caroline, so we'll get into some football talk to kind of balance the scale a little bit. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is Kyler Murray's letter to, I guess, the Cardinals organization, the
Everybody.
world. I don't know
It's an open
who
letter. That's what it's
you
called,
want to
open
say,
letter.
but
Everybody that can read.
I'll put the link to Adam Schefter. He tweeted out the letter in the comments or the description below. But essentially, Kyler or his agent wrote this letter, like detailing the state of the organization, how quickly it's turned around since he's gotten on board, and essentially, I guess it sounds like he's vying for the payday. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Tunde, you were the first one to bring it to light, so I'm sure you have some stuff to say.
So I mean, it just comes off as so arrogant when you haven't really won anything. I love the Cardinals organization. I use them in Madden, one of my franchises, and I think they've had a great rebuild, getting DeAndre Hopkins for a bag of chips, drafting Kyler Murray even when they had Josh Rosen. Great decision and stuff. But it's been 3 years, and you've had 2 years with a great team. You haven't done anything. Yeah, you've turned the record around, but you haven't. They got dominated this year. I know that they lost to the eventual Super Bowl champions, but they absolutely got dominated. Me and you were at the Lions game when they got dominated by the Lions, and I just feel like Kyler Murray sometimes just looks like
They were undefeated then, right?
Huh?
They were undefeated then, right?
No, they were on no, they weren't.
They had, because I know a part of the season they were like
They were like
6-0.
6-0. They were like 6-0 or something like that, and they had a bad slump.
But they were the last team standing that was undefeated.
Yeah. So it just seems like his body language and his attitude, even when it came to the Pro Bowl game, it just seems so horrible. And you come out with this letter saying, specifying exactly what's happened since you've been there, when you're not the only one that's attributing to those wins. You literally have DeAndre Hopkins now. You have Chandler Jones, who kind of started off the year super hot, but last year he was fucking killing it. And you write this letter, if I'm his teammate, I'm looking at him bro, this is, I understand you're trying to get your bag, but this is kind of a douchebag way to do it, And then I don't know how you boys felt about it and how you guys would feel if your teammate did that. I understand it's a business, but some of the stuff he was asking for is just ridiculous to me, out in the open like that.
I kind of disagree with a lot of what you said, Toon, just because the NFL is a business, and if you don't put pressure on owners, if you don't put pressure on what you want, you're never gonna express how you feel to a certain point, unless you do these certain steps. Just because I know that a lot of black quarterbacks in general, they don't really get the fair nod. I don't know why Lamar Jackson hasn't signed an extension yet. Kyler Murray in general
Doesn't Lamar have
is
an extension?
probably huh?
No.
No, not
No,
yet.
Lamar's
I
not on an
seen something
extension.
today. I seen something today that said the GM, he said that when Lamar is ready to talk about it, they can talk about it. But it doesn't seem like I think he's represented by his mom. It doesn't seem like they're there at that moment to talk about it. So it seemed like it's more on, them. So I mean, like,
Yeah, and then also with Kyler, like Kyler has a point. Like the Cardinals did suck before he came over there, and Kyler is a baller. I'm not gonna sit here and talk like Kyler not a baller. He for sure is. DeAndre Hopkins was hurt majority of the season last season. Um, a lot of the blame is going to Kyler Murray, and I think I read a report where he felt as though all the blame was going towards him. When in reality, you guys like said earlier, like their coaching staff isn't like the best. They just overhyped and they just chased the bag or whatever. There, right? Their coaching staff got a bag, so why can't Kyler Murray, the best player on their team, I would say, not want to be able to get paid what he's worth? And football money is a lot different. Obviously, he chose football over baseball, right? But I don't blame him. Or if you're a teammate on his team, I don't know how you feel self-conscious about him saying that it was success because he was there. I don't even think he said it was because he was there, but he's just stating the fact that they were more successful as him as a quarterback. So I don't see a problem with that or him chasing his bag.
Yeah, I see both sides of it. I do think it did kind of sound a little conceited in a way, but like I agree it's a business. Like I think it's ridiculous that Lamar hasn't got his check yet or his extension. I don't know. I agree that yeah, Josh Allen got his. And I it seems that he is getting a lion's share of the blame for their failings.
What quarterback doesn't?
I personally think
quarterback doesn't though.
A lot.
Yeah,
especially like
Who?
they don't take a lot of the blame, and obviously quarterbacks with color, right? It's a little bit harder for them to explain themselves because for some reason, like quarterbacks with color, they typically just basically like get overshadowed, or they say, "Oh, you might have had this good year." Like I was just on Twitter, I'm seeing Lamar Jackson highlights, and they're like, "Can you post something from like 2020 instead of 2019?" And I'm like, bro, he was balling this year when he wasn't hurt. Like, I don't get it. Like the whole tier of quarterbacks, like you have to be over and beyond as a black quarterback. And like, I don't feel bad that Kyler makes people pissed. Like, fuck it. Like, I'm gonna get my bag. Every other quarterback gets their bag. Josh Allen got his bag. Why can't I get my bag? Like, I'm obviously a baller. There's no denying that. So
yeah. I mean, even Lamar is probably still the most disrespected quarterback in football. I mean, people still call him a running back. And it's just kind of. I mean, he has arguably the greatest single throwing performance ever put together. In that game against the Colts, like that is arguably the greatest performance ever by a quarterback in the history of football. Like what he did that game. And I think that one, like Dab said, you gave this massive extension probably to Cliff Kingsbury, who I think is one of the most overrated coaches in football, and it's kind of getting carried by Kyler. It's going to probably end up being like a Aaron Rodgers carrying Mike McCarthy. I think it's going to be a similar thing, and now he's going to be stuck with them, and that's going to define what his pay ends up being eventually. And I think there's also aspects to them that I think that the Cardinals don't want to pay him what he's worth, or they don't want to give him the extension. That's probably why that they've released this. They've probably been conversations and they're like, we're not giving you 40 million. Well, if Kyler gets to free agency, someone's going to give him 40 million. So
absolutely.
You guys better. And this is essentially, I think, his way of telling them that, like, I think it comes off kind of abrasive, but he's saying, I mean, if you guys don't give me the bag, someone's gonna give it to me. And I see a lot of people saying like he's gonna want to go back to baseball, woo woo. Like, no, he's gonna get 200 million. He wasn't gonna get that like guaranteed in baseball. He would have been playing AA ball, AAA ball still.
On a bus somewhere.
Making unreal. He's already making unreal money as the first overall pick on a rookie contract, and now he's gonna sign for 200 million somewhere.
I just don't think the way that he went about it is correct. Who's ever done this before? Everyone's had contract negotiations. I don't think anyone's ever done it this way before. It just seems very unprofessional. As a leader of the football
like they
team,
say it.
huh?
They might not post like a post on Instagram or
That's what I'm
something
saying.
like that, but
it's not professional coming from your franchise quarterback. I don't want the leader of my team doing that if I'm on the team with him. I just feel like it's not professional.
There was a report before that about Kyler being like kind of immature and being like.
I heard he blames everyone on the team. Like he points the finger a lot.
Blames everyone on the team, but that's a report. That's like an anonymous insider within the organization that wasn't like brave enough to actually say like it was them that said it. So I'm like, we can only take that with like a grain of salt. So I feel like this letter was just his way of kind of controlling his narrative, like Kanye be saying, like I'm trying to control my narrative. Kyler's trying to control his narrative and explain his situation and why he should be compensated for being a heavy part in a team's success. I mean, I'm like half on this. I mean, like I know Kyler's going to get paid. I feel like he should get paid, and he has been balling. But I mean, and from the last 2 years. Like he got hurt the 1 year, all right. I think it was a hamstring, and like defenses kind of like keyed in on him, and his production kind of went down. So like it was that year, and then this year when they were undefeated and like no one could figure it out, I think it was like right after the Lions game. I don't know what the recipe was that that allowed teams to slow them down. Maybe it was definitely a combination of things. Maybe it was Kyler's play. It was Cliff Kingsbury's coaching abilities and not adjusting to what defenses are doing. But the Cardinals definitely did slow down, and defenses were definitely able to attack the Cardinals way more. And we seen that. Like we seen where defenses were just from what the Cardinals were in the beginning of the season. And to what they were in the later part of the season, they dominated the Cardinals specifically. And I'm not trying to put that all on Kyler. I feel like Cliff Kingsbury is definitely to blame for that, because as a coach, you have to adjust. You have to be able to put your players in the right position. But as players, as we play football. You have to execute what is called, no matter what. So I'm half and half on this. I do believe Kyler should be paid.
What y'all doing if y'all teammate did this? Y'all play football. What y'all doing if y'all teammate did this?
If we were paid and my teammate wanted to get paid and he came out and said I'm good enough to where I need to get paid and I knew he was good enough, I wouldn't say a fucking word.
Yeah, I was supporting.
In the end of the day,
and I know it's not directed towards me. It's directed more to the organization.
Yeah. In the end of the day, NFL players are workers. They're very well paid workers, but they're workers. And if one of my coworkers said, yeah, bro, y'all got to pay me because I do X, Y, Z, I'd be like, bro, go get your bag. Because you know what that does? Eventually, when comes collective bargaining, and obviously I think they kind of messed up their last agreement, but 10 years from now, or whatever, 8-9 years from now, and the next one, everyone's going to be like, all right, look at all these bags you're handing out. The revenue keeps going up. Like, you're going to have to spread this money. So, like, I think that... I think overall, you guys make good points. I think, Tay, you make a really good point about how, and there's been like former reporters that have come out to this. The NFL media, or sources say, is not the friends of the player. Like these are not gross, these teams in the NFL will definitely have people say, sources say, woo woo woo, to ruin the. I mean, we heard so many sources say about Odell Beckham. So many sources say about Odell Beckham, and every single time, all of his teammates are like, I don't know what anyone is talking about, because guess what? It looks terrible for the Giants organization. It looks terrible for Cleveland when he comes out and goes to these other teams and then starts going crazy on them or doing better than he was with your organization. But overall, I mean, Kyler's going to get paid. Maybe he could have gone about it in a slightly better way, but, get your bag.
Get your bag, Kyler Murray.
Sticking with talking about bags, actually, NFL commentators have been getting bags. And I kind of want to talk about the state of the NFL commentator, because it's just a bunch of white dudes for the most part and Aqib Talib, pretty much. Like,
Gus Johnson, the GOAT.
Yeah. So Aikman is leaving Fox to go to ESPN. I don't know if his number got released yet, but I'm sure they're giving him a lot of money to do it. I'm sure ESPN's now, or Fox pretty much only has Joe Buck left. I don't mind Joe Buck, but whatever. But then supposedly Sean McVay got offered $100 million for 5 years at Amazon. And I think it's just insane how people without any type of background in journalism or broadcasting, obviously a lot of these guys are former players, are just getting these massive paydays from these networks, and they aren't even that good at their job. I don't like listening to Troy Aikman. I hate listening to Troy Aikman. And I think like Tony Romo might have kind of started this trend because Tony got like 180 for 10 years from like CBS or whatever network he works on. And I think he gave his case as being probably the most knowledgeable broadcaster there is. But I think you can see this in all sports too, though, and how it's very like a lot of white males. Basketball is probably a little bit more diverse, obviously, which helps. And obviously everyone loves the TNT crew and like Doris Burke and stuff like that. But especially in the NFL, it's just so white men, and no one even liked it. I mean, everyone makes fun of Chris Collinsworth every single week. Every week. That's all people talk about, is making fun of Chris Collinsworth. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on just, there has to be people out here that could do these jobs that don't need 10-year, $180 million contracts or these like insane contracts that can do it good.
I mean, I guess what these networks are looking for. I mean, the NFL is really trying to, play out this entertainment part of the industry where you see like players celebrating more, and they're really embracing that entertainment side. So I feel like when they're, when they're going to people like Sean McVay and offering them these big bags, it's because they have been directly correlated with the game from a level, whereas someone that probably is more deserving, they could probably get a different aspect or different approach. It can give the audience a different approach, because I know like when people listen when Tony Romo's ever doing a game, and especially like his first year, when he was like it was a Kansas City and the Patriots game, and like he was like guessing the plays, like people were going nuts, and like that, and I think networks seen that as like content, and that where they can like capitalize on that. So they like like CBS has Tony Romo, so now like everybody else is like looking for like their next Tony Romo, because Tony Romo directly came from the game. So I think that's just like the state where like these networks are, and it kind of, I'm not gonna say like it sucks to a certain extent, because like you've been saying, like most of these commentators, like they're not good. Like you said, like people been laughing at Chris Collinsworth for so long, whereas like if you had just like a commentator who doesn't necessarily need that big bag, just because of they don't have like the popular name, it's just crazy how we now, like how these networks are now reaching to that point to where it's like, okay, I gotta get like the next Tony Romo. Let's throw Sean McVay $20 million a year, so we can start getting more viewers and stuff like that. So I think that's just where the league is right now, where it's just like entertainment and just like name. It doesn't even like matter. Like I'm not gonna say you gotta be at least like decent, but it's all about kind of like name and stuff now.
I will say, speaking of names, that I love the Manning cast. I'm not sure how much they get paid a season, but I think that's a great.
I think they got extended for like 2 more years or something like that too.
And that's a popular name.
Yeah, but it's fire, just like having that name in there, like because they played the game and they're interesting when they talk about the game, but their whole dynamic is just amazing to watch. I think it's just that's the cost it is to how much money they're making off these games. You might as well pay the commentators that much. I understand where we're coming from, Dre. I don't think it makes a big point to pay them that much when you got other people who can do it. But if they had more stuff like Manning cast, I say keep giving them bags, because that's pretty interesting. I'd love to see like a defensive version of it, with Ray Lewis and
The murderer.
Troy Polamalu or James Harrison or something out there. Them doing like a defensive version of the Manning cast for defense. That'd be awesome. So I like that interactive version, but I don't really think it's that crazy that they're getting paid that much just because the industry and the brand is just so rich. So Daz, what's your take?
They make so much money now. So.
Yeah, exactly. Daz, what's your take on it?
I watched the Manning cast at first.
You didn't?
And it was cool.
You did.
I said I did. I watched it. I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, it's going to be Peyton Manning and Eli. And then I saw, the layout. And, I watched, 2 or 3 games. And I was like, nah. I want to go back to the classic. Just because I like watching certain things. And then when people talk about certain things, then I watch that instead. I like watching defensive line, offensive line go and stuff like that. But, yeah, I think it's a cool way to make ratings go up for NFL, make the NFL more interesting, to include people that's actually played in the game to talk about it, which they got to throw them a bad because of how much money they were making anyway. And I would rather, instead of fucking getting paid $300,000 or something a year, I'd rather just stay at home. I already got millions, so they got to throw them a bag, right? But it also takes away from people that's actually job was to or studied the game in a certain way to where they wanted to be a broadcaster and stuff like that, that's actually put the work in and will accept less money for it. So it just depends. As long as you're knowledgeable in the game, I feel like you should have the opportunity. And also, it's also presentation too, because it's not just about knowledge. You got to be able to present. You got to be able to speak clearly. You got to be able to have that voice as well, where you're not annoying when you're talking, because it's a 2-hour game, so that's important.
I know that the NFL does have a program for their players after they get done playing, where they can go into a broadcasting program that the NFL sponsors and everything. That's how Randy Moss, Michael Strahan, Randy Moss still got that Southern twang, but he talks so well with it. Michael Strahan probably had a list. I think he had a really bad list before. Now he's on TV, not even just for football, for Good Morning America. So I think the NFL, as much as they do kind of, I don't want to say exploit their talent because they're making so much money, but how much they use their players and then throw them away after I think that is a good thing that they have that broadcasting program. But yeah, for anybody who's trying to get in a broadcasting job in the league, unfortunately they probably have to do the Nickelodeon game.
Hey, they say that be busting though. They said
I didn't watch
they
it,
be
but
getting they be getting high ratings and stuff.
They had a bunch of kid broadcasters on there too.
Yeah,
I saw it on Twitter.
What's the dude name? Was it Dylan?
I don't know who it is.
See, those kids aren't going to be able to get a job later because fucking Patrick Mahomes wants to be a commentator. See,
talking like Kermit.
It's just a bidding war for who can get the biggest name at this point. I'm pretty sure Tom Brady will probably never get in the booth, but I'm pretty sure somebody tried to throw the bag at him. I'm pretty sure they would throw 50. They would throw 50 million at him.
Get Gronk in the booth, or get Gronk on that ESPN countdown or whatever. Yes. Gronk on ESPN.
I hated him when he was an analyst. I hated when Gronk was on there. Yeah, it was not it was so frat boyish. I thought it lost its novelty after a few minutes.
What do you guys think of switching sports? But Draymond is playing right now and somehow broadcasting too.
That's dope.
That's dope. Draymond is really knowledgeable and and everybody knows him as this really smart player. We kind of know him as I
never liked him.
I did when Brown was on the team. When they played with Cleveland, I hated him. I despised him. But I like him now, and I understand that's how he plays. He's the chippy guy, but he kind of toned down since 2016.
Yeah. They're gonna have to find somebody. Really I don't know who they're gonna have to find to replace that TNT crew, because they win Emmys.
Yeah.
Who's gonna be the next Ernie EJ? I don't know no white boy who be the next EJ.
The only one that has talked about leaving soon is Charles Barkley. He said he done. I think after 2 years he done. He said he don't want to die on TV. So I think they definitely probably replacing Draymond with Chuck.
Yeah, they probably.
I could honestly.
I think D Wade in that conversation.
They're gonna get a girl up there soon.
Probably Candace Parker. Candace Parker does a really good job.
Candace
Parker. I could see her definitely getting up there. Yeah.
But
does she still play?
Yeah. Yeah, she playing too.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
I'm
but
looking
I
like
mean,
that.
for Charles, I could definitely see them replacing him with Draymond, and I can see like Draymond retiring
nice.
early because I honestly would talk about the game and not have to play and just travel all the time. I would retire. I'm done.
Yeah,
I thought you was talking about Doris Burke for a minute. I don't know why I thought about that.
but like that dynamic.
Why?
That
Why isn't
TNT
Doris
group,
Burke like? Huh?
that dynamic that TNT.
She's on
group.
ESPN, isn't
She's on
she? Isn't
ESPN.
Doris on ESPN? Yeah, she's
Yeah.
not TNT.
Yeah.
She be commenting
Doris,
the game. She be commenting some games too.
I saw something on
Yeah,
Twitter that
Doris-
said Kobe was supposed to be like on that TNT group.
TNT.
R.I.P.
Yeah, he just said he couldn't do all that promo.
Butterfly effect. He might still be here today if he was still if he had taken it.
Yeah, that's true.
We wouldn't be at war right
So
now.
I mean, the thing about like the thing about like I guess the NFL. Come on, man. The thing
Bro,
about like the NFL and NBA, and I just think it's like all of like a bidding war for like the biggest names. So like whoever retiring next, whether it be a coach or a successful coach or player, is just like, hey, let's try to see if they interested in comments, and they might not, but they will get us views because we would see the game from their, from their viewpoint. So.
Okay, coming up next, and this is a first time for this segment, and I don't know if you guys have a lot to say about this, but yeah, I don't know if you guys will have much to say about this, but bro moment of the week. So bro moment of the week is, it can be good or bad. It's just something that's so, I feel like so masculine in nature, but it doesn't have to be like obviously a guy thing. It can be something at the gym or just something you experience with like your friends or maybe your significant other. And this past weekend, I went to Monster Jam. And it was so badass. I used to go to Monster Jam every year as a kid for my birthday because it also comes to Detroit when, like around my time of my birthday. And I forgot how fun it was to watch some damn 10,000-pound trucks jump 30, 40 feet into the air.
I used to do
I've seen that.
the Supercross all the time. I never went to the Monster Jam, but I would love like the bikes. But Monster Jam's got to be sick. I heard it's loud as fuck. Like some people have to like wear like earplugs and stuff. That's sick. They still got Gravedigger?
Gravedigger was there, bro.
was.
We got because Maximum Destruction, he's from Michigan, and then there used to be another one called the Avenger from Michigan,
the
but
Avenger.
we got hosed. Like they do like a race portion, a best trick competition, and a freestyle, but then like two of the trucks on the freestyle like stalled. They like hit a huge jump within the first 20 seconds, and the truck just stalled out. But overall, it was a great time just to like sit up there. We ended up sneaking down to the bottom of the bowl, like 100 level, and yeah, it's super loud, and I just never realized like how obviously big those trucks are. And then I don't know, it's just a fun time, like even as old as I am now.
Yeah.
It was definitely a very diverse festivity. I mean, in Detroit, you obviously have a lot of black people, but they brought definitely the rural folk to Detroit for sure. Came see
Came down from up north.
come see the monster trucks.
Come on,
but
Earl.
last thing on the dock is comic book club. So going forward, we're gonna pick a comic or a series or a certain set of issues to kind of, go together, and we're going to go read them all. And then we're going to come back in maybe 3-4 weeks and give our thoughts on, what we felt about it, what we feel about the character. So in honor of the Moon Knight show coming out soon, we're going to start off our comic book club with Moon Knight. So we got, it's about 20 total issues. The first set of issues are 6 by Warren Ellis, so the Moon Knight from the Dead 2014, and then the second set is from Jeff Lemire. So if anyone is interested in comics and wants to, read along with us, we'll come back and reconvene in like 3-4 weeks and kind of give our thoughts on how we felt. Obviously, the Moon Knight show is coming out soon on probably Disney Plus or whatever, starring Oscar Isaac. So I'm pretty excited. I'm not like, maybe per our second episode, I'm not like the hugest Marvel fanboy or anything like that, but I'm really excited for Moon Knight actually.
I'm excited for that too.
I have no idea who Moon Knight was.
I seen the
before
trailer.
Disney.
I think he got
Disney
insomnia. He just can't sleep.
It's not insomnia.
I don't know what it is, but I'm
He has,
happy.
Yeah, he has like I think like people like kind of equate him to being like the Batman of the Marvel universe, kind of like he's a crime fighter. He doesn't. I think he kind of has powers, but he's more like peak human-esque. But he has. I think his main kind of stick is that he has multiple personality disorder or something along those lines, and a lot of the show or not show or character itself is him dealing with becoming these different personalities as obviously a superhero.
That Oscar
so
Isaac guy's a good actor. He's in Dune.
Yeah,
He's
I like
in Dune.
Oscar
I'm
Isaac.
excited to watch that. So are we recapping every week
Oscar
or?
is elite.
I say we just read them all and then come back in like a month.
Send me that PDF.
So
Oh, dope.
We need to schedule.
We'll schedule it out. But also, like, I do want to encourage people that if you are gonna read comics or manga or whatever, if you can afford it, please pay. If you can afford it, I understand like not everyone can afford like all these types of media and stuff, but if you can't afford it, like a lot of these comic book services like Marvel, they have a subscription service. You have access to the whole Marvel library for a few dollars a month. If you can't afford it, obviously if you can't, go ahead and pirate it. Not because I care about Marvel, but because
Just going.
like creatives are severely underpaid in their industries. So obviously I want to try, if you can, to support those people for sure. But otherwise, go find the 1, 2, 3 movies of whatever.
I'm going to the comic book store.
We can all go to. You can go to the library too. Go to your local library.
He just promoted pirating.
Yeah, your libraries will have them a lot. Obviously, your comic book stores, and if you can. I don't know. There's a lot of resources out there.
Big ass library down the street from my house.
Even if you just want to know what's going on in comics, there's plenty of YouTubers that'll just explain it to you if you don't feel like reading them. But I strongly encourage you to dive in. But that's all we have for today. Obviously, a short section from the 4 of us given the interview. So we'll catch you next week after the combine, free agency will be kicking off. So we'll get into some more obviously football and ready. Break on 3. 1, 2, 3. Break.
Peace out.
See you guys.
Comrades.